Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wist. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Hello, Christopher Giroux.
Hello.
Is that I always screw up people's names?
No, it's great.
Giroux?
It's Giroux. I always got. It was funny the first time that I remember sitting on a computer.
Yes.
I was in the 4th grade, and we had to type in our names. That's all we did, and my name came up as it was spelt wrong, and it always suggests a word that it could be there. So it auto-corrected my last name to Jerk. So I handed in a project that was Christopher Jerk, and that's it was an ongoing joke. But yeah, Christopher Giroux. Yeah.
So that's funny because I have the apostrophe in my
Of course.
name. It's and when I try to pay for stuff online, I generally have to take it out or make the K uncapital. So relatable content. Okay, so when did you first, just not even making movies, when did you first get into watching movies?
It was funny because I had a similar conversation about recently because of Rise of Skywalker coming out. I'm a big Star Wars fan. And I think as far back as I can remember, I loved movies. That's all I did. I played with movie action figures. I had movie posters 360 around my room. I always just loved movies. I loved cinema. I could sit in front of the TV for hours and just be entertained. And even at a very young age, I kind of realized that like the majority of kids' content even wasn't for me. I wanted the Terminator when I was 5 years old. I wanted Planet of the Apes. I wanted Star Wars. I wanted Night of the Living Dead. Even when I was between 5 and 7, I wanted more mature content even as a child. So I loved it as far back as I can remember. I always wanted to. I loved movies. I wanted to make movies. I literally don't have a memory that I can remember be saying like I wanted to be a firefighter. I just wanted to work in movies.
So horror is like really your big thing.
Horror is my thing for sure.
And but sort of Star Wars, like the excitement, the adventurous element of cinema.
Absolutely, it just drew me into it. And like I remember watching Night of the Living Dead. I think that was the first horror movie I ever watched. And it just felt very accessible. It felt very spooky and cool, and it had like this awesome, underground vibe that I was just like, wow, all the other films that I've watched were so polished.
Right.
Star Wars being very polished and like blockbusters being so polished. But this way, as soon as I saw Night of the Living Dead, I was like, wow, like, this is something very unique. And there's people eating each other, and it was such a powerful film. And as soon as I got into genre filmmaking, I knew that was the right path for me.
I think what stands the test of time what makes it stand the test of time, Night of the Living Dead, is there's so much energy and
so much
charisma behind it. And so what? Like if the framing's not great, or if this performance isn't wonderful, there's this passion and hunger to put something truly as good as possible on the screen.
Right. No, I agree.
Inspired, for decades to come.
There is no Walking Dead without Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
There is no massive. There's no 28 Days Later. There's none of these massive films without that film. It was the birth of the genre, really, and George A. Romero changed the zombie genre and reinvented it for the modern times. And it's the zombies today are because of that film.
Yeah, and we have the Jacques Tourneau stuff. I Walk with a Zombie, or movies like that. But that's more like Haitian voodoo.
Yeah, exactly. Which is where the origins of the word comes from. I actually, many moons ago, over 12 years ago, I dated a woman who was in health sciences, and there was a class on the origins of medicine with witchcraft, and they did two class back to back about zombies, and I was able to audit the class because I was just a big zombie fan, and the teacher was like, "Oh yes, no, he can come audit the class," and it was a University Ottawa U class on zombies.
Oh, cool!
And it was all in the birth of zombies.
Was 10 years ago, right?
10 years ago.
I remember when I didn't do the class.
Yeah.
But I remember that was a thing.
It was very cool, and it was very educational. It was talking about Haitian voodoo and kind of the origins of the word zombie and where that came from. And then Romero kind of flipped it on its head and made them, more as monsters, which was great.
Yeah. Okay. So there's never a time in your life when you're not, totally captivated by cinema.
I live and breathe it constantly. It's my go-to. It's my one true love is cinema. So.
Yes, and PBR. We got some PBR being poured over here, and that's a beautiful thing too. And how are you today?
Super.
Great.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so all right, so it's obvious that you're. It's like it's like that line Snoke says, like fulfill your destiny. You got to do it.
It was
right?
from day one.
Yeah.
My destiny was from day one of making movies and making genre films.
So how did you fulfill your destiny?
I started as soon as I went to high school. There was this communications technology class, and cheers. Yeah, this is great. Great way to do an interview. It was a communication technology class where you get to make like a short film, and you couldn't make a horror film, but because they didn't want any like violence in the school.
Got it.
Mantra, but I picked up a camera, a VHS camera, and I made a movie. And then I asked if I could take the cameras home. And they were like, sure. So then I made a horror film. It was called Check the Children. It was a blunt rip-off of When a Stranger Calls and Black Christmas. It was about, babysitter watching kids and killers in the house. And it was, a 10-minute little movie I made on VHS, and then I just started making movies with my friends that were always about hitmen or violence or zombies, and even during my family Thanksgiving one year, I made them all do zombie makeup because we rented this cottage, and it was this amazing cottage with this creepy woods, and I was like, we have to shoot a movie here. And it's just been ingrained in me. As the moment I got a camera, I was off making horror pictures with friends and, having a great time doing it.
At what age?
I must have been 13
Wow.
or 14, yeah.
God damn. All right.
Yeah,
so,
I got right into it.
Yeah. So, what is the Toronto advantage?
Living in Toronto,
Yeah.
being in Toronto,
Yeah.
it's the hub, of filmmaking of the North.
Yeah.
All the studios are there. Obviously, filmmaking opened up in the past 25 years with like digital and there's offices and studios across the country. There's even film studios in Sudbury and film studios in North Bay and all across the country. But Toronto is still the hub. It's Los Angeles of the North, and everything runs through there or has a parent company or a sister company that has an office in Toronto. So the benefit is it's very accessible when you're in Toronto.
Yeah.
The downside is all those major motion pictures also want to shoot in Toronto, and now it's become very hard to film a movie in Toronto if you're not Suicide Squad.
Right.
If you don't have hundreds of millions of dollars, Toronto is, a little bit harder to deal with because all the prices for everything has gone up in Toronto. So you almost want to live in Toronto, to pitch in Toronto and be in Toronto so you can be in the scene, and then you want to take your film and go shoot it somewhere else, whether it's just slightly outside Toronto, like Hamilton or Parry Sound.
Right.
But you want to be in the hub. That's where all the deals happen, and people fly, into Toronto just for meetings now, and it's all very accessible in the hub of Canada.
So right now it's Digi60, which is a big deal for Ottawa filmmakers. It is a great thing to kind of put it on your resume, kind of like in your log line for your your career in Ottawa. You can say I did Digi60, I did this, I did that. So how else should this might be harder to answer, but like how else should Ottawa residents kind of like get into Toronto? How can they do this?
I think the best way, the great thing about Ottawa is that filming here is very accessible, and you can have different looks in Ottawa that we don't necessarily have in Toronto. Toronto is just wall-to-wall city.
Yeah.
But Ottawa has a lot of green spaces and farm spaces, and Gatineau Hills very close, and you have all these very cool locations, very accessible. So you can make your picture and then bring it to Toronto and bring it to the hub. But I think the majority of the great independent films that are happening right now are not necessarily happening in Toronto. They're happening in the fringes around Toronto, and then people are bringing the final products to either find distribution, find festivals and things like that. But making movies in a place like Ottawa is fantastic. I used to live here myself, and it's a very accessible city. There's a lot of great companies here, a lot of emerging companies here, a lot of great filmmakers that live here, and a fun scene.
Yeah.
That is really emerging and really blossoming. And then you can always take those films to the hub, to Toronto, and pitch them or try to find distribution or attend festivals as a filmmaker. But
you suggest the people in Ottawa though should go to Toronto.
Yeah, you should go to Toronto and set up meetings and set up
and stuff.
Absolutely, and figure out that kind of path.
I got the wings. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right,
this
beautiful.
Is very cool. I have to say, we're here at Dunn's
we're here at Dunn's.
lunch.
We're hanging out. Yeah,
this is great.
Yeah, we're giving you the Jim Wynorski treatment.
This is fantastic.
All right, so what are your thoughts on DC60? Like generally speaking, what do you think about the festival?
I think it's fantastic. This is my first year being here.
Oh.
What happened? How I became involved in becoming a panelist for the festival was. I had a film come out earlier this year called I'll Take Your Dead.
Yes.
And it played here in Ottawa at the Mayfair.
And it was reviewed on Mystic and Severe.
Yes, and it was, it's a movie I'm very proud of. And so it got a little run at the Mayfair. Mm-hmm. And I always consider Ottawa my second home. So I wanted to come back and attend. And when I lived in Ottawa, I saw movies at the Mayfair.
Wow.
So it was a real thrill to have my movie play at the Mayfair. And between the Mayfair, Black Fawn Films, and Breakthrough Entertainment, they were able to arrange that they have a seat dedicated to me at the Mayfair.
Wow.
So I have seat 66, and my name's on a plaque and on the chair, and I've said that out of all the achievements that I've kind of built up over the years of filmmaking, this is by far the coolest. And Digi60 heard about the chair dedication and me screening, and then they wanted to bring me out to join the festival this year, so it was fantastic. But I've been following it from afar, and the concept of shooting like a short project for a festival and then having it screened, I think, is a very unique concept. They do program other films as well, but it's interesting that you shoot a movie for the festival versus shooting your movie and trying to get it into a festival. I think it's a very unique model. I think it's a very supportive festival. I think that everyone involved is really great. I just came back the genre filmmaking panel this morning, and the questions were great. The vibe was great. I think the people in the room really got it. It was great attendance, and even the other panelists who I just met for the first time, I knew some of their bodies of work, like Helmington, and it was great to kind of sit down and find that we're all genre filmmakers, but we all came from very diverse backgrounds and things like that, so it was a very cool vibe. Really digging the fest, and can't wait to come back next year.
Okay. So, tell me about the distribution side of things. Mm-hmm. So you've gotten. I was at the gym and I saw like on Rogers TV they were talking about I'll Take Your Dead.
Yeah.
So and
we had the top.
We
went
or Sunrise Records, right?
Yeah.
How do you get that?
So it's very cool. So I actually work for various companies, but kind of the two brother and sister companies I work for is one is called Black Fawn Films. We produce original content, whether that's feature films or whether that's music videos or commercials. We produce original content. Then we have a sister company called Black Fawn Distribution, which four of us co-own, and we run it more like a record label, where we distribute some of our own projects, but we also distribute other people's projects. And we're a distribution company that really cares. We really want the films out there. We really want people to see the films, and we really want people to have the content accessible. So for deals like Sunrise Records and Cinema One, we went to them and said, hey, listen, we're a ragtag team of filmmakers. Right. We love what you guys are doing, keeping the video stores alive.
Yeah.
Let's try to do something together. So especially with Sunrise Records, we've been able to do in-store signings. We've done cool giveaways through them for Halloween.
Nice.
They did a big Black Fawn feature nationwide during Halloween this year, so all of our titles were accessible through video stores. And not just films that we've made, but other filmmakers that we've picked up and distributed through our label. So it's really great. And there's kind of like these three tiers of distribution, especially in Canada. There's your physical media, which is Blu-rays and DVDs, and sometimes people still release VHS tapes. There's your theatrical releasing when movies are played in cinemas, and then there's your kind of your digital kind of path as well, about releasing films through iTunes and things like that. And then if you're lucky enough to get a broadcast deal as well. And with I'll Take Your Dead, we went through a series of different avenues. We had a broadcast deal through various stations. In Ontario, it was through like Rogers On Demand and things like that, and we were one of the top 5 Canadian films for about 9 weeks running, which was great. We were hovering in around the number 3, number 4 mark, and it was fantastic. Even in the theatrical run of the film, we were on the top 5 Canadian box offices of the film too, to be beat out by the Gordon Lightfoot documentary, but if you haven't seen it, it's an incredible documentary.
I hear it's very good, yeah.
So it was great just to be on that list. But we try to get our film seen, when it comes to laurels and accolades, they're all great, awards, fine. But we just like people to see the movie. And if it's on digital, and if it's on broadcast, and it's theatrical, and it's DVD, and it's Blu-ray, it's very accessible for all fans to watch it. I know that a lot of horror fans love physical media, which I do.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people like to say, hey, I like the Netflix model. I like to stay at home and watch my content, which is why I like having a broadcast deal and being on these specialty networks are very important, and iTunes and things like that. So the people who are no longer have a DVD player or no longer have a way to screen physical media, it's very accessible for them too. Even though physical media, in my opinion, is still the coolest.
Absolutely. Okay. So tell me about your team.
I have kind of 3 very distinct different teams. I have the Black Fawn Films team, which is run by Chad Archibald and Cody Callahan. They started the company years ago, and I've been very honored to be a part of that company for such a long period of time. They're brothers to me, and they've taught me so much about filmmaking and genre filmmaking, and just pushing yourself as a filmmaker and as an artist. I have my Black Fawn Distribution family, which also has Chad Archibald attached, and Cody Callahan, and Gabriel Carrera, and CF Benner, and we're like this little family that distributes films, goes on the road with them, goes to Fan Expo with them. It's almost more like a rock label. It feels like we're in a band. We announce a tour. It's very fun. We go to all these different cities and screen movies or sell movies or whatever. And most recently, within the past 14 months, I've started working for another company called Vortex Words and Pictures that started as a comic book company and now does feature films.
Wow.
And I have that family as well, which is, we have a small team of Jesse Eichman and Bill Marks and my production team, which is Vince, James, and Evan, and we're like a little family as well. And we've produced, we're on our 5th film in 13 months together.
Wow.
And a lot of different genres there. We've done a heist thriller, we've done a horror film, we've done a Lifetime movie, we've done a Thanksgiving rom-com, we've done it all.
Wow.
So it's been great to have these 3 different pockets of teams, all that approach filmmaking very differently, and but all have this huge love for cinema. And creating films and creating cinema, it's a team effort. It takes a community to raise a child. It's never a one-person show.
No.
And having such an amazing supportive team, and having financiers and studios and production managers and line producers and amazing cast and crew is what really makes these films possible. And we have the Black Fawn family, and at the Vortex office we call it our Filmily, our film family. And it's just great to have so many supportive filmmakers, whether you're an amazing makeup artist like Heather Jennings, who jumps between the 2 companies with us, or whether you just work for Black Fawn or Breakthrough or Vortex. It's amazing having this huge community that is so film friendly and so passionate about making movies.
All right, so now a bit more technical stuff. What are the integral elements to making modern day horror movies?
I think it always starts with story. Story is big. I think of cameras and editing software and lights. Those are tools. They're just tools in your tool belt. Whether you're a plumber or electrician, or you're building houses, you have a tool belt. You have an arsenal of equipment. My dad's a ex-police officer. He has a different type of tool belt, right? He's got a badge and handcuffs and a gun. Everyone kind of has this kind of tool belt, and a lot of people get tied up in the, I want to shoot on the Arri Alexa, I want to shoot on the iPhone, I want to shoot on 35 millimeter. Those are just tools to tell a story. I think having a good story is where everything should be rooted to. I think no filmmakers really set out to make a bad movie. Some movies turn out bad, some movies turn out so bad that they're great. You know, like The Room is probably the most famous so bad it's great movie. But Tommy Wiseau never said, like, let's make a bad movie. He was like, let's make the best movie possible, and it turned out the way it did.
Yeah.
A massive cult following, and, you know, a very unique blip in cinema history. But so many people go out and say, like, especially now after the kind of like grindhousey type films, and say, let's make a bad movie, people will love it. Nobody wants to make a bad movie, everyone wants to make a great movie. And so I think it's always rooted in story and finding something that is very accessible and very appealing to, you know, whether it's a subgenre. You know, we've talked a lot about Italian horror, which I think is a big subgenre. And you know, films like The Editor, the new Suspiria movie are rooted in Italian horror. And the giallo filmmaking. But trying to find something that, you know, whether a niche market loves it or a mass audience likes it, it all just comes down to story. All your camera tech and all your lighting equipment, it's just tools helping you tell that story. You can tell a good movie on an iPhone. You can tell a good movie on 35 millimeter.
Wow. All right. So who are role models within the modern industry for you? Currently working.
Currently working. A lot of my heroes are, of course, rooted in the origins of George A. Romero and Fulci. But modern day heroes for me right now, love Jordan Peele's work. I think he's great. I remember when I first heard that he was going to do a horror film, I was pretty hesitant because he comes from such a comedy background. So I was really expecting a Shaun of the Dead when I saw Get Out. I couldn't be further from Shaun of the Dead.
No.
But it's I find that there's a lot of great filmmakers nowadays. It's amazing. When I first started working for Black Fawn, you know, I'm sure they blush when they hear this, but Chad Archibald and Cody Callahan were heroes of mine. And they made some films before called Never Lost, and Cody produced 2 other films called Monster Brawl and Exit Humanity. I saw these films. I saw the articles on these films. I wanted to be a part of that scene. And now it's hilarious. They're like brothers to me. They slept over at my parents' house. We're all so close. And but you know, it's these filmmakers that just pick up a camera and just go. You know, I'm a huge Tarantino fan as well. I remember watching Pulp Fiction and being blown away. I never saw a movie that was out of order and kind of odd. I remember the credits rolled, and I was like, I have to watch this again. But I find a lot of the people who are working today in modern cinema are trying to, you know, reinvent the wheel and trying to find new ways to tell original stories. And I think there's so many great working filmmakers out there today. I think a lot of the ones that I really respect and really admire definitely go back to like Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino, who are still working today. But they're still rooted in the kind of the origins of American cinema or Italian cinema. I think those are really great. But I find films here and there. I was really inspired by the new Suspiria movie. I thought that it was a very different movie than the original, but I was just really drawn to it. I thought it was a very powerful film, and I thought it was a very unique picture. And I go to film festivals, and I saw a movie called Last Call, which is a filmmaker named Gavin Michael Booth. He made a film with his wife Sarah Booth, and it's a one-take movie from 2 perspectives. It's a split-screen film. It's all in one take. They shot 2 different units with walkie-talkies, and they did this whole film in one take, but it's split screen, so it's kind of 2 one-takes that are playing at the same time. And he's been a friend of mine for years, and he showed the film in Toronto, and I was very excited to see it, being a fan just of his work. I was so emotional. I was crying during the film. I was so brought into it. I knew the actors. I knew the director. And I was just so moved. And it was just a dramatic piece about a person who kind of dials the wrong number, is kind of reaching kind of a suicide hotline, but the janitor kind of picks up, and they have this conversation between a man who's suicidal and this woman who's not really equipped to deal with it, but just shows compassion. And it's so powerful. And after watching that film, I was
Where's it from?
Gavin's originally from Windsor, but he lives in L.A. He did the first Periscope horror movie with Blumhouse as well. They did a live Periscope movie, partnered with Blumhouse. So he's a very inventive filmmaker, and I think after watching Last Call, I would say, you know, Last Call is the best independent film I saw in 2019. And it was so amazing and so jarring as a filmmaker that I walked out of that being like, wow, it's so inventive. It's It's all about story,
Yeah.
but they used all these amazing techniques about oneers and things like that to make it this very unique body of work.
All right, well, Christopher, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real masterclass.
Super fun being on the show, doing an interview at a restaurant. This is next level. I love it.
I'm glad you dig it. So before I let you go, may you please give us a little tease of what 2020 has for you?
Yeah, 2020 is a big year. As of now, I'm scheduled to produce between 8 to 10 features back to back.
Outrageous.
It's just a next level career move.
Yeah.
I'm so honored and blessed that I have these opportunities in front of me. Some of them are genre, some of them are holiday rom-coms. It's a huge mixture of films that I get to produce in 2020, and I'm very excited. I have movies coming out in 2020. A movie called Don't Click, which is a horror film starring Walter Skarsgård, the youngest Skarsgård brother who was in Lords of Chaos. I have a movie called A Perfect Plan starring William Forsythe and Carlo Rota, and it's a heist thriller. It's very fun, a lot of cool action, kind of like an Ocean's 11 meets The Jackal. It's super fun, but 2020 is going to be a new decade, a new chapter, and I'm very excited to be producing and releasing so many wicked movies.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me.